morning, everyone. My name is Jasmine Flanders. I'm an undergraduate student at Rutgers University, New Brunswick. Yeah, let's get started. So this dashboard is to, take a look at all of the abandoned property cases over given approximately 10-year time span. And we can track the status of these properties, their inspection data. We can take a look at how the distribution of abandoned property cases compares with the socioeconomic status of different areas of Newark. Once again, we have a map of Newark divided up by census block right here. And if we hover over these census blocks, once again, we can see some information like the income level of these different blocks. And we also have this display menu here. So right now the census map is being displayed. If we want, we can disable that by using this menu, and we can display, we have a few different options. We can display a heat map showing the distribution of abandoned across Newark, or we can display, once this gets off the map, or we can display the property map, which shows all the individual properties, all the individual abandoned property cases across Newark. And once again, if we hover over these cases, we can see some more detailed information, such as the address, the net value of this property, the date a case was created, its status, and also some information about when this case was updated or closed and when the most recent inspections occurred. So really, we can track the status of each individual property by looking at this map here. And I'll just put this census map back up and get rid of this for a second. So just talking about the census data a little bit more, if we select one of these census blocks, then we can filter a little bit of census data down here by that block. So we can take a look at the population density, income levels, the racial and ethnic makeup of a certain area. And also, if we'd like, we can once again color the map in terms of median family income versus median non-family income using this feature here. So, and once we click on a census block, we can filter all of the surrounding data by that area. So I'm just going to put the property map back on again so we can take a look at that. All right, so let's take a look at this, middle panel here. So we can see the total amount of cases for this given time span. This is also a static set of data from 2014 or 2013 through 2023. So we can see the total amount of cases for a given time span, which we can filter using the start and end date parameters up at the top. We can take a look at the amount of cases that are open or closed, which we can filter by clicking on one of these statuses. So we can take a look at, all the open cases, for example, versus closed cases and filter all the surrounding data. We can also take a look at the net value of these properties. So, if something's under 75K or as much as over 400K, we can filter by the net value of properties and see what type of cases are being handled, how many, and how long they're open for. We can also take a look at when these properties were most recently inspected, and we can filter by that year. So if we want to take a look at properties inspected in 2013 versus properties that were inspected more recently, we can easily filter by clicking on that. And then if we take a look over here, we can also see the case status in terms of, open cases are typically either recently abandoned, they're being rehabilitated, or they're just being identified as vacant, versus closed cases might be acquired by the city. They might be turned into commercial property. They might be demolished. Maybe the case has undergone litigation removal. This property might be occupied, or it may have already been rehabilitated. And we can also filter by clicking on these different statuses. And then we can also take a look at, as far as over time, how long are these properties being abandoned? Is it, properties being abandoned for a shorter amount of time? We can filter by that versus we can see how many properties are being abandoned for a longer amount of time. Which, once again, we can click on these things and filter. And last but not least, we can see how many cases are open over this given time span. So if we hover over this chart here, we can see, a lot more cases are open back in 2014, 2015, versus more recently, there've been a lot less cases open. So now I guess we would go over some use cases. Once again, I would ask the audience if they want to follow along with me and test a few like simple things out. So one thing we might want to check is how income correlates with the amount of abandoned properties in an area. So in order to test for that, we can disable the property map and just take a look at the census map. Okay, and so we can take a look at an area with higher income level and filter the data and see there's only, 5 cases over the entire time span for this wealthier area. And these properties are usually valued pretty highly. There haven't really been that many cases open over the entire time span. These are all from 2014 versus if we deselect that and take a look at, let's see, maybe a lower income area over here, we see a fair amount more cases. We see a much more even spread of the property value, and we see a lot more cases over time, though most of them are concentrated in these earlier years. All right, another thing we might want to take a look at is how does the net property or the net value of a property correlate with the case status or amount of time that a property is abandoned. So if we take a look at the property net value chart again, we might click on, some of these lower valued properties, and we see a pretty even spread for the amount of time abandoned, but normally, they're abandoned for longer amounts of time, maybe greater than 5 years, versus if we look at more expensive properties, we see typically they're abandoned for less amount of time. So that might be something interesting to look at. And another use case we might want to see is how does the most recent inspection time compare to the open or closed status of a case. So if we take a look at cases inspected back in 2013, for example, we see most of these cases are closed now, versus if we take a look at 2023 down here, we see a lot of these cases are still ongoing, even though they're recently inspected. So yeah, I guess that also about covers it for this dashboard. All right.